Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
My friends and I always tune into the Todd Levitt Law Show. Todd is entertaining, informative, and always delivers the goods.
Todd might not tell you what you want to hear, but he's going to tell you what you need to hear. And all you got to do is listen.
Hold on, Todd. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola. C-O-L-A Cola. She walked up to me and she asked me to dance. I asked her her name and in a dark brown voice she said Lola. L-O-L-A Lola. La 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 Lola. Well, I'm not the world's most physical guy, but when she squeezed me tight she nearly broke my spine. Oh my Lola.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Marijuana Law Podcast. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting from the middle of the mitten, a beautiful green nutrient field. And Craig Russell, the muscle, the field is wet, the sky is blue, babies are soft, and I love you. That's all I have to say.
What the hell did that come from? What is that?
I have no idea. We opened up with my...
Babies are soft and I love you. What?
The sky is blue, water is wet, babies are soft, and I love you. I don't know. That's just a poem, I guess.
I guess.
I don't know. Yeah. Hey, broadcasting and podcasting for sure. What's the announcement for the show today, Craig?
The big announcement is this show is recorded. We have to let everybody know that this show is not live on Sunday. Why? Because we're preparing for the 420 Canna Expo, which when you're hearing this on the radio was yesterday. When you're hearing it in podcast, it's probably coming up. But we wanted to make sure that we told everybody right off the bat, the show's not live. Next week, when the show comes out next week, no matter whether you hear it on podcast or whether you hear it on the radio, you will be able to talk accurately and efficiently about the 420 Canna Expo going on at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. But if you're hearing it on Sunday, it's already over.
Yeah, absolutely. And big shout out, by the way, since if you're hearing this on Sunday, to all the exhibitors who traveled from all over the country. Green Farms, one of our major sponsors, Green Farms. Big shout out to Green Farms, GR Hydro, North. Of course, Denise from Cannabis Attorneys in Michigan, Porlicella. I mean, there's so many to thank. We'll be thanking them next week on the show.
Yes.
But if you're listening to the podcast, it's a good chance you're listening to it on Friday or Saturday before it airs. There's still, well, if it's Friday, there's still time to get to the show.
It's Saturday, depending. Maybe you're pre-gaming a little bit. You're listening to the show on your way to the expo, and we'll say hi to you then. But there's the thing, when we do the show on Sundays and everything, and then we put it up on podcast and everything. It's weird how because the show is on Sunday and then Saturday is the expo, and so we had to prepare for it a little bit. So we want to make sure, completely transparent, that everybody knows that the show is not live today. We are taped because of the 420 Canna Expo. So
yeah, and I'm sure the show is just going to be lit, and I can't wait to talk about it next week. But I will say this, that last weekend was the first race of the season. It was a gravel grinder called the Barrier Bay in Hastings, Michigan. And
okay.
Everybody from Hastings, Michigan, all the volunteers, Rick and Scott, who run the Barrier Bay, do such a great job. I shredded the gnar on my salsa spearfish carbon fiber. I did well. I finished in record time this year. There was a headwind. The first 10 miles, there was a headwind, but there were 3,500 racers going off in waves every 2 to 3 minutes. And so big shout out to everyone that was out there. Team Levitt Law Firm was representing. Big day at the races last week.
Big Hair there? Was Big Hair there?
Big Hair was not there. He was doing yoga.
Oh, okay. I got
Yeah, he's
you.
too hung up on yoga. No, but Big Hair was working on his Windows. No, we promised we wouldn't talk about yoga anymore.
Oh, okay.
Big Hair stopped talking to me for a week. I think it has something to do with yoga.
Wait a minute. So of all the things that we've made fun with Big Hair about, driving the Prius and wearing the flannel and all that other stuff, it was the yoga that pushed him over the edge to where he doesn't want to talk to you. Really?
It was the yoga. Yeah, no more yoga talk for Big Hair.
All right, fine.
Yep,
That's funny. Who else was part of Levitt Law Firm racing there, the racing?
We had Jen out there. We had Vinny out there. We had Chadster, a.k.a. Big Daddy. We had the Captain Tommy, who was one of my best friends. He was Special Forces in the 90s for the armed services, and we love our veterans. So
Sure.
Tommy was out there shredding hard. I had a lot of friends out there that day. There were a lot of people out there from Mount Pleasant. So
And the weather was pretty nice before it got all weird and wonky and everything, and all the snow
the next
happened.
day it snowed. It was crazy.
Yeah. So, but thank goodness the weather is better now. It's more like spring in the nutrient green, legal hemp and legal marijuana field. We're podcasting all over the world. In how many different countries are we in? Like 3 dozen, something like that. Crazy noise.
Yeah, the numbers on our podcast are just exploded. So we appreciate everyone out there who's listening to the show. Please keep sharing it on all your social media sites. If you have any questions and you want to send us an email, how can they do so, Craig?
It's Todd Levitt Law Show at gmail.com. That's Todd, Levitt Law Show at gmail.com. We do our best to try and answer law questions and talk all about the law and about how it relates to cannabis and how it relates to drinking and driving and how it relates to just about everything. And of course, every week, Todd has a complaint or 6. What's your complaint this week?
Well, before I get to my complaint, I just want to announce that the guys from the Dude Grow Show are going to be coming on. So Scotty Real and the dude himself are going to be coming on the show here in the next little while. So big shout out to the Dude Grow Show.
Those guys are awesome.
Those guys are my heroes. I love these guys. I've been on their show. If you want to listen to another marijuana cannabis podcast, these guys are legit. They're the best at what they do. So check out the Dude Grow Show on YouTube and all the other social media. Be sure to join and be a member of the DG guys over there. Great dudes. But my complaint is this, Craig.
What's that?
And I think this one is universal. I have a couple of them. First off, in getting ready for the big 420 Canna Expo, I noticed that with Amazon, they ship tiny things in big boxes.
Yes, they do.
Is this a universal complaint?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
they do.
I got a box that looks like it should fit a mattress in, and inside it was something the size of a mouse. And I mean, it's just like, it makes no sense whatsoever. Like, what a waste.
I think they do a little bit of it to fool people, and I also think there's they probably have some psychology thing where they figure out that when you get a box and it's bigger than what the item is expecting, you get more excited, and it gets you more pumped up, and it'll make you order more stuff from Amazon. I think they figured that out.
I'm not exaggerating. I mean, the size of a mattress box showed up, and inside was just a little teeny, a phone plug, like to plug your phone into the wall. So, but I mean, I do love shopping with Amazon. I'm not knocking Amazon itself, though. I love, things come so quick and so fast. But here's my issue. I don't know if it's a complaint or not, but this is my issue. When I go to a grocery store and I'm ready to check out, I don't know about you, but I cashier shop. I actually go up and down the aisle to look for the friendliest cashier who's in a really good mood that's moving her or his line along. I mean, is that unusual? Do you do the same thing?
No, I don't do that exactly, but I can understand why you do that. I know I enjoy going to the self-checkout. I like that personally, but I could see why you do that because I know you like to get in and get out and be done. And if somebody's moving along quick, yep.
I want a cashier who's not talking to the person in front of me about their kids and what's going on with all the soccer moms and this and the other thing. I want a cashier who's moving those lines or scanning the codes and getting things moving. So I will actually cashier shop. I don't care if it's the longest line in a store. I'm picking the best cashier. And here's the other thing, because my issue is, Craig, that the last week when I was shopping at a store, I put my items on the conveyor belt right up against the items that were ahead of me from the customer ahead of myself and that had put that little thing in between our products.
Yeah, the little spacer thing.
Yeah, the spacer thing. But when the other person was done and my products moved all the way to the front, the cashier looked at me like, who am I to, I was almost stressing the person out because all my stuff was piled on top of the other person, and there was no break in the action for them to take a break. So now when I go to a cashier, I give, I'd say about a foot before I put my groceries down so they have that space there.
That's probably the polite thing to do, but yeah, most cashiers you think would be able to handle that.
You shouldn't have to, though. Here comes the groceries. It's on a conveyor belt. Just do your job. Start scanning. Stop talking. I don't have any coupons. I'm satisfied with everything. No, I did not find everything I was looking for because you keep moving things around at the store. So when I'm looking for this, I find that. When I want toilet paper, I'm finding yogurt. Don't replace my toilet paper aisle with frickin' yogurt and cold products. That's what happened at the last store I was shopping at. I went for the toilet paper. I ended up with yogurt, and I bought the yogurt, needed toilet paper, didn't have any because it was in the wrong aisle. That's my complaint. Thank you. We are a law show. And after the break, are we going to actually talk about the law, Craig?
I think that sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's do that.
We just lost all 10 listeners of the show. Sorry, Sparky. We met Sparky at the Expo. We don't know that because this is pre-recorded, but Sparky from the Dakotas is coming to the show, so I can't wait to meet Sparky.
Okay.
All right, we better go to break.
Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan is Michigan's premier law firm for cannabis businesses. Denise Policella, Michigan's first marijuana business attorney, founded Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan in 2009 with the goal of representing and protecting the state's cannabis industry. Now with 7 attorneys practicing in 12 specialty areas, including corporate finance, real estate, mergers and acquisitions, and labor and employment law, the firm can take you from startup to licensed to powerhouse. Their expertise and experience in the Michigan cannabis space simply cannot be matched. If you are considering getting a cannabis business license in Michigan, or you already are in the industry and require premier representation, let their nearly 70 years of combined experience take you to the next level. Visit them at cannabisattorneysofmichigan.com or call 517-546-1181 today. Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan. We are the business of marijuana, serving all of Michigan.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola, C-O-L-A Cola. She walked up to me and she asked me to dance. I asked her her name and in a dark brown voice she said Lola.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting from the middle of the Mitten, a beautiful green nutrient field. Craig Russell, the muscle in the mothership. How you doing, Craig?
I am doing fantastic, coming off the high of the 420 Canna Expo. Of course, this show is taped, so I'm assuming we're coming off the high of it. It seems like it was going to be fantastic. But we'll talk about it in great detail next week. We'll have actual audio from the show. We'll have us with a bunch of people that we got to say hi to and thank. And, of course, everything. If you're hearing this before the Expo, come down to the Expo. If you're hearing it after the Expo, you'll have to wait till next year. But it's going to be back for next year.
Yeah, and big shout out to the chief and all the tribal council members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan for inviting us into their home and being so gracious and allowing the show to take place this year. We hope to be back next year. 420 falls on a Monday next year, so we're hoping to do the same show on the 18th next year on Saturday.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to do this big expo on a Monday.
Nope.
So that makes a lot of sense. And of course, the casino is just a beautiful property. I mean, it's just fantastic. For some
Water
reason,
park, golf course. They have if you have an RV, they have a great park. I mean, the property is just gorgeous with the restaurants, the new sports bar.
Yep.
It's a 5-star resort. It's unbelievable.
It's just fantastic.
Great concert series, music, country music, outdoor concerts.
It is the entertainment capital of Michigan right there, right in Mount Pleasant, right in our own backyard.
for sure.
Hey, so Todd, I know you get a lot of calls into the Levitt Law Firm at 989-772-6000. Todd Levitt. What are some of the big questions of the week you get in regarding marijuana and cannabis at the law firm?
So the big question for recreational states, we don't just receive phone calls from the great state of Michigan, which looks like a mitten, by the way. We receive calls from all over the country, albeit I'm only licensed in the state of Michigan to practice law.
Sure.
The big question of the week is, again, and we've talked about this week in and week out, in Michigan and a few other states where cannabis is recreational, can you smoke in a motor vehicle? If you're parked in a motor vehicle in a parking lot, is that considered privacy, a private location that meets the requirements of the new statute? So the question is, can you smoke in public, basically? And you know what the answer is?
I would say it's N-O no.
It is N-O no. You cannot smoke let's take the state of Michigan, for instance. We're recreational. We've talked about this. We had Denise on last week. You can smoke in private, but some will argue, well, a motor vehicle sitting in a parking lot is private. No. The Michigan courts have ruled that a motor vehicle is out in the public domain. It's a vehicle that moves, therefore it is not stationary, such as an apartment, a home, or real property. It is not a private location. And to add to that, Craig Russell, we talked about this, till we're blue in the face. In the state of Michigan, you cannot operate a motor vehicle with any THC, active THC, in your system. And recently, and I think Rachel touched on this, the previous governor in the state of Michigan appointed a board to review whether or not the statute should be amended to include certain THC levels when operating while under the influence. They came back and said that THC level is not a reliable indicator of driving impairment. The Impaired Driving Safety Commission, as it was called, forwarded its findings to the current governor of the state of Michigan and the legislators after spending nearly 2 years studying how marijuana affects drivers. So this is a big deal here. Instead, the panel, Craig, recommended that the state continue to use a roadside sobriety test to determine if a driver is impaired. Again, I understand the roadside sobriety test. The problem I have with roadside sobriety test in any state in this wonderful country of ours, we love this country. We say it each and every week. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. What are we, Craig?
We are Americans.
We're Americans.
That's right.
But the problem I have with roadside sobriety tests, they're like carnival games. They're almost set up for you to fail. Number one, if an officer pulls you over for whatever reason, and he or she is approaching your vehicle, the odds are you are human. You are going to be nervous. So if you are somebody who it's late at night, you've worked all day, maybe you were out at a bar, at a movie, at a restaurant, you were just hanging out, and now it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, you get pulled over. So together with those nerves and how long you've been up, maybe you worked all day, and now you have to, say the alphabet without singing. One of the sobriety tests, Craig, is, say the alphabet from A to L or A to M without singing it. So you can't go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. You have to say the alphabet. We're trained to sing the alphabet like a karaoke machine.
Well, and there's the other part of it too. What if an officer has a prejudice against people who use marijuana? They're an officer. Now, we respect law enforcement. We say that every week. But what if you are someone who doesn't think marijuana should be legalized, and you pull someone over and you think that they've been smoking marijuana? You might be, because you're a human, much like everybody else is a human being, you might be unfairly biased against that person just because you personally don't care for it. You shouldn't be, but it's the same thing as they say, why there's replay in every sporting event now. Every sports, you watch baseball or you watch football,
you have a problem
basketball,
with those replays. Takes up too much time.
But there's a reason why they do that, is because enough human error gets into the way of the game or way of the event that they need an actual video replay of it. It's the same thing with human error and human judgment when it comes to things like pulling somebody over for marijuana. They might not be impaired at all, but you might be able to smell something, and that might unfairly have a bias. That officer might have an unfair bias against you, and when you aren't actually impaired whatsoever. I mean, that's the thing. When there's a breathalyzer, that is actual scientific fact. And if you're just using roadside sobriety tests, there's going to be a percentage of error. There's going to be room for problems. And I think you're right. I think that it ends up being a big problem all around.
Well, the one, so that's the one test, the alphabet, sing the alphabet. Well, they'll say the alphabet from one letter to another letter without singing the alphabet. One of the other sobriety tests is walking a straight line. When it comes to walking a straight line, an officer should, and in my experience, will ask if you have any type of disability. Is there anything that will prevent you from completing this task or test? Because obviously, if you have arthritis or you just had knee surgery or you have something wrong with your foot, then if you're not going to be able to walk a straight line, and your inability to walk that straight line may have nothing to do with impairment from alcohol or any other type of substance. It may have to do with the fact that, you have a bad knee or a bad back. So the question is, how reliable are those tests? Now, in many states across this great country of ours and countries that listen to the show, the laws don't even require that sobriety tests be performed. So in the state of Michigan, under the jury instructions, you could be convicted of operating while visibly impaired if you are someone who is operating a motor vehicle on a public roadway or parking lot accessible to a public roadway. So that's the first element to be convicted. So you're operating a motor vehicle. Can the officer prove you're operating a motor vehicle? So now once they pull you over on a public roadway, the question is, how do they get to the point in the investigation where they can ask you to submit to a chemical test, either breath, blood, or urine? How they do that is 1, from their observations, 2, from asking you questions, and 3, from the sobriety test. So if an officer has, enough reasonable belief that you may be intoxicated from one substance or another, then he or she can then place you under arrest, ask you to submit to the test, and the test at the station, hospital, or otherwise should be taken. Do not refuse a breath test or a blood test. In Michigan, it's called an implied consent suspension, and you could lose your ability to operate a motor vehicle via a suspended license for a period of 1 year. Now, if you are somebody out there or you know somebody who refused that test and they're currently suspended for a period of 1 year, I actually specialize in that. This is not a solicitation, but a circuit court judge in Michigan can give you one bite of the apple in a lifetime and grant you a restricted license. I do quite a few of those. But there's a myth out there, Craig, that you should refuse to take the breath or blood test. No, you should not. At that point, you should cooperate or you're going to lose your driving privileges. So once an officer pulls you over, before he or she can place you under arrest, there has to be something in the middle. There has to be some kind of corpus. It's a Latin term, corpus delicti. There's got to be something more. And those sobriety tests and the officer's observations is what leads to the more.
And just so I'm completely sure about this and can make this an accurate statement, when you say implied consent, in other words, if you turn down taking that breathalyzer, is that you, without saying it, saying that you feel you have alcohol or some kind of substance in your system that will cause you to fail the test? That's why you don't want to take it?
Well, the reason why people don't take it is because, and again, it's not the public's fault. They're not attorneys. They're not law enforcement officials. They do not understand the law. So if somebody has been drinking, let's use alcohol, for instance, and they think, well, man, if I blow into this thing, I'm going to be above the legal limit of 0.08 in most states. I'm getting arrested for drinking and driving, so I'm just going to refuse to blow. Well, in almost every state, what will happen next is if you refuse, the officer will contact a magistrate or a judge who is on call and get a warrant to have your blood taken. You see, your blood is part of your person. It's part of who you are. An officer or the government cannot just say, hey, we're going to extract your blood. They have to have probable cause, via a search warrant or your consent to do so. And that's important to think about. You have Fourth Amendment rights against illegal search and seizure, and you cannot illegally force me to give blood. So what will happen is when the officer wakes up, the magistrate or judge, they have to have specific facts and articulate those facts to reach a certain threshold where the magistrate or judge will feel satisfied to issue that warrant to have that blood taken. and then that blood will be used against you at some point.
So it's just better to just, if it's asked for you to take a breathalyzer test, you're just better off doing it.
Craig, it's implied, and most people don't know this. If you or someone you know are driving on a Michigan roadway and an officer requests that you submit to a test, you have to consent. You cannot say no. It's called implied consent. It's implied that you're going to consent to it. If you refuse, there goes your driving privileges for a period of 1 year, albeit, as I said earlier, I can get you in a circuit court and get you a restricted license. But this all goes back to the original conversation of that commission putting forth their findings that THC levels are just not determinative. Is that even a word?
It is now. You just made up a new word.
Right? What the hell, man? What's going on here? It all goes back to what the commission said in regards to the THC levels, that officers should rely upon sobriety tests and not blood to determine if somebody's impaired while having active THC in their system, because everybody's different, Craig.
It's true. Everybody has a different body size.
Energy,
everybody takes that stuff in differently and everything. Hey, we got to take a break. When we come back, though, I want to pick this back up because I've got a couple of other questions, especially about a motor vehicle being a private area to use marijuana in, if there's an exception to that. I'll just leave it at that. We'll take a break. We'll be back on the Todd Levitt Law Show. Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan is Michigan's premier law firm for cannabis businesses. Denise Policella, Michigan's first marijuana business attorney, founded Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan in 2009 with the goal of representing and protecting the state's cannabis industry. Now with 7 attorneys practicing in 12 specialty areas, including corporate finance, real estate, mergers and acquisitions, and labor and employment law, the firm can take you from startup to licensed to powerhouse. Their expertise and experience in the Michigan cannabis space simply cannot be matched. If you are considering getting a cannabis business license in Michigan, or you already are in the industry and require premier representation, let their nearly 70 years of combined experience take you to the next level. Visit them at cannabisattorneysofmichigan.com or call 517-546-1181 today. Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan. We are the business of marijuana, serving all of Michigan.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola, C-O-L-A Cola. She walked up to me and she asked me to dance. I asked her her name, and in a dark brown voice she said hello.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting from the mothership. Craig, this show is not live.
No, it's not. With the 420 Canna Expo and everything going on, we had to record this show in advance just so we could prepare for the expo. And trust me, after that crazy expo last night, the last thing we want to do is come into the studio on Sunday morning to do the show. So we recorded it ahead of time, with all trying to be completely transparent about everything. Next week, we will talk in great detail about everything that happened at the expo. So
can't wait.
Yes,
can't wait. And if you missed it, we'll be back next year.
Yeah,
on a Saturday, 4/18/2020.
And we're gonna try and do this in other places. Are we not? Is that the goal someday?
The show has been so successful that we have been asked to bring it to another location, 1 or 2 locations that I won't announce as of yet, but that's definitely a possibility.
Just know this, it might be somewhere out of Michigan. So if you are a fan of the show and you live in another state somewhere else, it's possible you could be seeing all of us coming to a town near you. Just saying.
And we appreciate hearing from our listeners from all over the world. I mean, we have people listening in Spain and Ireland, Italy, all over Europe, Australia, Brazil, South America, Mexico,
of course,
Canada.
You heard this past week all the tragedy that happened in Paris at the Notre Dame Cathedral that burned down. except for the majority of it and right in the middle, but the big fire there and everything. We have a lot of people who live in France who listen to the show as well. You can find us on any podcasting platform, Spotify, TuneIn, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, you name it. Libsyn, we're all over the place.
Yeah, and please post the link and share with your friends. We appreciate everyone who is downloading the show. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email, toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com, toddlevittlawshow@gmail.com. And look, we'll keep you confidential. We're not gonna say your name like Sherry so-and-so from Minneapolis, Minnesota, who works for the state of Minnesota, just shot us an email about how much this she can smoke and how much that she can smoke. You want to know something? I do have a freaking complaint, by the way.
Okay.
My complaint is one we've complained about quite a bit on the show, is that, and some states are now coming to the forefront with this, putting in protections for employees as far as employers not be able to test them and whatnot. But I just find it so hypocritical that you can go out with your boss at lunch and have a celebratory cocktail of some kind of alcoholic beverage, which we don't want anyone drinking and driving out there. But yet, if you smoked, medical marijuana 2 weeks prior, or if you're in a recreational state and they test you, you could lose your job. I mean, again, we're sort of beating this drum over and over again, but there needs to be more employee protections as time goes on.
Well, and for starters, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you keep beating this over the head, eventually somebody will notice and will say something about it. But secondly, and here's the other part, marijuana in 10 states in the country is recreational legally, and in over 30 states, it's medicinally legal. Okay? True. Yes. Half the states, more than half the states, have some form of legal cannabis use. Now, none of the states have legal cocaine use, correct?
That is correct.
Or heroin. You can't use heroin legally in any state in the country, correct?
Correct.
So if I'm an employer, I would want to make sure my employees aren't doing hard drugs that are super illegal. Cocaine, heroin, crack. Marijuana, that's legal in some places. That's no different than drinking alcohol. So I would say if I was an employer, I would be a little more lenient about that kind of stuff. Now, again, if you all of a sudden show me, hey, they've got traces of cocaine in their blood, well, that's a totally different story. But if you've got marijuana or THC, that shouldn't matter.
Yeah, good point, Craig. You always have such great points.
I try.
Hey, big shout out, by the way, to the city of New York. New York City Council just passed a bill whereby marijuana testing of job applicants is barred by city in groundbreaking measure. So this was a bill that was passed just this last week by the New York City Council, and it's a series of steps, Craig, to ease cannabis restrictions as efforts to legalize marijuana in that state have stalled on a federal level. Most employers, what this means in New York City, can no longer force job applicants to take drug tests for marijuana use under this bill that was literally, as I read it, overwhelmingly approved by the New York City Council. And if this drug screening law is enacted, Craig, it would put New York in relatively uncharted territory. And at least that's my opinion. Now, in Maine, where voters approve legal recreational marijuana use, the law prevents employers from discriminating against people who have used cannabis, but it does not specifically regulate drug testing. You see, so there's two different things there. In Maine, the law prevents employers from discriminating against people who have used cannabis, but there's still no drug testing regulations taking place. But in New York City, the bill would affect both public and private employers in the city of New York, including companies with headquarters elsewhere, which is really important. Just because you're working in a city, the headquarters and the main office can be in another state. Well, guess what, folks? The city controls what they control. Well, and I'm proud of the city of New York to take this action where the federal and the state government has stalled in the city of New York and the state of New York.
Well, see, and that's what we're talking about. There's somebody in New York who is on the city council who listens to this show and hears us talk about this all the time. They go ahead and make that a bill. They vote on it. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Simple as that.
Exactly. And I think it was sometime by 2011, more than half of the United States employers conducted drug screening on other job candidates, according to certain surveys out there that I found, and they're pretty reliable. So Man, again, hypocritical. Hey, let's all go to lunch. I'm taking you out to lunch to celebrate so-and-so's birthday. In fact, I'm going to allow each of you to have one cocktail, and the company's going to pay for it. And then you can all go back in your motor vehicles and drive impaired back to work. But if you're an employee or you're applying for a job in our corporation and we test you and you have 1 nanogram of THC in your blood because you have a medical marijuana card, oh, no, man, we're not giving you that job. Now, again, we don't want anybody out there operating any heavy equipment. We can get into, Craig, a whole show on different strains from sativa to indica, hybrids, how something may be more sedative in nature or something may be more uplifting. So again, look, you could do anything and have a legal right to do it, and you could do it in access where you're going to end up putting somebody in danger. So we don't want anybody, we say it week in and week out, whether you have a legal right to do something or not, to put anybody in danger, whether it's on the roadway or a combination of certain things or at the workplace with heavy equipment. We just want everyone to be responsible out there.
Well, and this is also an offshoot of low unemployment. There are so many companies that are looking for workers these days, and there's so not that many people to fill those jobs that employers have to start doing things like not doing marijuana drug tests because they know that's going to knock out a segment of the population that could be otherwise gainfully employed at their company. And there's companies in Michigan that are doing that will put that right in their want ad or in their ad on monster.com or whatever. No drug test needed. And because they just know that's going to disqualify a good portion of people who could be working at their place. And with unemployment so low, there's places that are looking for work and they continue to look for work and there's nothing they can do about it. They've got to try and find employees because there's so much business. That's the offshoot of low unemployment and a good economy. So
absolutely. Hey, big shout out, by the way, to all the men and women in all the recovery court programs around the state of Michigan, specifically Isabella County, where I work out of. Kathleen Fields and her team do a great job together with the judge. In Mecosta County, Susan does a great job together with the judge. I'm not saying the judge's name. I don't want to brown nose too much.
Sure.
These programs are fantastic, these recovery court programs. In the state of Michigan, as in other states now, they have veterans courts. So we love our veterans. We support all the men and women and their families who serve our country and allow us the freedom to sit here and talk about these things and exercising our First Amendment. A lot of states now have veteran court programs where they're looking at the individual and the needs of our wonderful veterans. There's also mental health courts that are now spreading across our country and the state of Michigan. And Judge Stuart Black, our newly elected judge, he was a big proponent of that. And we really appreciate his advocacy in the area of mental health courts. So we got a lot of men and women out there who are working really hard to help the men and women out there who need to be in recovery. And also, Craig, if you are someone and you're in the middle of the mitten around central or mid Michigan or to the north, and you have court mandated counseling, or you just are somebody who needs counseling and you need to talk to somebody, Central Michigan University, the Center for Community Counseling and Development, your alma mater, yes, my alma mater, CMU, Fire Up Chips.
Fire Up Chips.
They will provide free counseling, free of charge to individuals out there who need it. So I met Silkia Puckett, a wonderful student working on her master's degree. She's an amazing young lady. She is one of these individuals who are providing counseling at the Center for Community Counseling and Development at CMU, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. So if you are someone look it up. Center for Community Counseling and Development on the university campus of CMU. If you're someone who needs it, can't afford it, no insurance, they'll provide it.
That's awesome. It's really good how people, these stories about people who do bad things all the time. I love the fact that we talk about people who do good things like that. That's really important to help out your fellow man and to help people out, and for the university to be involved with it, and someone going for their master's degree and being able to help out somebody, especially people who probably, if you can't afford that, you probably can't afford other things as well. And that's good that it's paid for and that's free, and that's just a big help.
Absolutely.
It warms your heart, doesn't it? Warms your heart.
It does, because we're all living on the same rock floating around outer space. If you think about it, we're on a rock floating in the universe here, our universe, the solar system, the Milky Way. We're just spinning around together on the same planet Earth. We should all just get along and help one another out. And I'm always reminded of this. I'm always reminded about mankind and how good people are when I do these big bike races.
Okay.
Because as I mentioned in an earlier segment last weekend, I shredded the gnar on a gravel race, the Barrier-Roubaix in Hastings, Michigan, with 3,500 other racers. And when you're racing at that level, you're not interested in what someone looks like, what their political beliefs are, what they stand for, or anything like that. You're interested in being safe, making sure you're hydrated, helping one another out. Every time a biker goes down, you will have 50 bikers passing by asking if they need help. And, at the end of the day, if we all walked around and we didn't go on social media, we didn't watch cable TV or anything else like that, things would be a lot better, because we all need to survive on this, big rock of ours floating around space.
It would be better if you went around and you found somebody who was down and helped them up and asked them if they needed help. That would be a better way to spend your time than on social media. I totally agree with that.
It always reminds me when I do these races that, man, people are so good. Nobody at these races, no one's talking about anything other than what we're doing there, how we're going to get through it, how we're going to help each other out. That's it. That's survival, man. That's mankind at its best right there.
And mankind at its worst is we have to take a break. But we'll be right back to wrap up the show. The Todd L. Levitt Law Show will be right back. Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan is Michigan's premier law firm for cannabis businesses. Denise Policella, Michigan's first marijuana business attorney, founded Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan in 2009 with the goal of representing and protecting the state's cannabis industry. Now with 7 attorneys practicing in 12 specialty areas, including corporate finance, real estate, mergers and acquisitions, and labor and employment law, the firm can take you from startup to licensed to powerhouse. Their expertise and experience in the Michigan cannabis space simply cannot be matched. If you are considering getting a cannabis business license in Michigan, or you already are in the industry and require premier representation, let their nearly 70 years of combined experience take you to the next level. Visit them at cannabisattorneysofmichigan.com or call 517-546-1181 today. Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan. We are the business of marijuana, serving all of Michigan.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola, C-O-L-A Cola. She walked up to me and she asked me to dance. I asked her her name, and in a dark brown voice she said hello.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting in the mothership, the Black Diamond Group mothership on 98.5 WUPS. And where else, Todd? Where else are we at?
We're all over this universe. We're on every podcasting platform, iTunes, Spotify. So if you are someone and your first time listening to the show, this show is being pre-recorded because of the 420 Canna Expo that's taking place.
Yes.
For listening on yesterday, and we'll be talking about this next Sunday. But you just go to your phone, go to the App Store, download Spotify. It's free. And then once you download Spotify, type in my name, Todd, Levitt, and just look for the show, subscribe to it. And each and every week when we upload the radio version and some other shows on the platforms, it's going to pop up and you can hear the show anytime you want.
Do you like how I brought us back, by the way? You said you always wanted to hear me do that. So.
I mean, it was okay. I think they'd rather hear, welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show with my fake radio voice.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
think
people meet me and say, wait a minute, you sound different on the radio. It's because Craig taught me how to do a fake, because Craig, your voice doesn't sound like that. I'm just telling you.
No, it doesn't. No, I use that is the
your
best
voice
compliment.
Is more like this in person.
That's
and
right.
When you're on the radio, you're like, this is Craig Russell, the muscle.
When I'm talking on the radio, I've got the big ballsy voice. But when you meet me in person, I really talk like this.
You sound like a South Park character. By the way, the funniest South Park episode I've ever seen is the one where I think it was Stan or Kyle, his little girlfriend broke up with him.
Right.
And he's all depressed. So they take him to a restaurant that's supposed to be similar to Hooters, and it's called Raisins. And then the girls go, "Welcome to Raisins. How can I help you, sweetie? Oh, I love you." And one of the little waitresses touches, I think, one of the little characters on South Park, and he thinks that, she loves him, so he invites her parents there. He spends all his money. It just cracks my you-know-what up. Welcome to Raisins.
Oh, my God. Where in the world did we get to South Park talking about on this show?
I don't know, because of your voice. And by the way, big shout out once again to the Dude Grow Show.
Yes.
Those guys, Scotty Reel and the Dude, will be coming on our show here hopefully the next month. And check out those guys on YouTube and all their social platforms. Also, Craig, the Mount Pleasant Sprint Store, Jordan, off the hook manager of the Sprint Store there over in Campus Plaza Mall on the south part of town. Jordan, you're the man. I walked in there, solid customer service. I've been with that company for years. Elizabeth was great. Everybody was great there.
Wait. Am I to believe that you got yourself a new phone?
No.
Oh.
I had to do something with my current phone.
Oh. Haven't you been trying to get a new phone for years?
And I finally did. I know. The phone's just been busted. You know what the biggest misconception? You asked me during break, what's the biggest misconception people have as you as a lawyer, Todd?
Yeah.
And well, there's two of them. One, when they walk in my office, for whatever reason, they think they're going to see a short, heavy, bald guy. Okay. I'm not short. I'm not heavy. I'm not bald. Craig, how would you describe me?
I would describe you as a guy who looks about 36, 37, pretty good shape, lots of hair. I don't think you ever have to worry about losing your hair. I'm guessing you had pretty good hair in your family.
Yeah, I'm 6 feet, 220. In high school, I wrestled. I played football, did all that fun stuff. So I was a linebacker and a defensive end for 6 years. So I played linebacker and defensive end in junior high. And then when I got to high school, I had to play, freshman football. Then I got moved up to varsity my sophomore year and played outside linebacker and defensive end. That was a lot of fun, smacking people back in those days. It was our biggest rival was Royal Oak Kimball. Back Royal Oak, which is one of the big cities outside Metro Detroit. Kimball's no longer a high school, but man, Kimball, we just went head to head with those guys.
Well, so now, okay, so you said there were two misconceptions. One, they thought they would walk in your office and see a short, bald, overweight guy. What's the second misconception?
Oh, that I drive some fancy sports car.
You drive a big truck.
I drive a big old Chevy. You better believe it. My Chevy is lived in. I mean, I've got deer dents on it and, scratches and all kinds of bumps and bruises on that truck. And it's paid for.
You're a Michigan,
we walk out of court. I'm a Michigan guy. I drive
a Michigan lawyer. Come on.
I drive a truck.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, all my buddies in Metro Detroit who drive all these sports cars, it's like, dude, come up to where I live. Those sports cars aren't going to make it up here. Where we live to the north on the snow belt, you have to have a truck. You have to have a truck. Plus, you could shove all your gear in the back of the truck.
That's true. You can't do that in a Jaguar or a Lamborghini or whatever, or a Porsche.
Yeah, try that rear-wheel drive up here where I live. By the way, big shout to my cousin, my best friend, Anthony Zarilli, and the birth of his son, my cousin Anthony, the king I call him, Rosanna, and the entire family. I love you guys, and albeit this is pre-recorded, I'll be seeing him on Saturday with all the boys.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Are they coming were they at the 420 Canna Expo yesterday?
My cousin Anthony will be there. Biker Bob will have been there. I love Biker Bob. He'll have been there. Frank Bailey. Frank is back in the boxing business. Frank's old style boxing is back. So big shout to Frank. Little John will have been at the show. Vinny, Big Hair, Rachel, everybody will have been at the show. Biker Bob's coming up, my cousin, and all the boys will be up from Detroit, Metro Detroit. It's going to be a great show, albeit if you're listening on the radio, it was yesterday, and we can't talk about it till next Sunday because we're pre-recording the show.
That's right. You missed everything. Speaking of the show, we got to get going. It's all over.
No, come on.
I'm serious.
Craig, come on, brother. We're just getting started
I
in the
know.
nutrient field. Things are growing. There's work to be done.
April showers bring May flowers. I know.
Hey,
but
the plants are growing. There's a lot of work to be done. You need to get to work, Craig Russell, and start working here in the mothership, in the nutrient field, so that we can continue doing the show.
Well, if we keep doing the show, I can't get working. So show's over. We got to go.
Show's over. Got to go. Yep. I'm not just a litigator. We'll see you next week live. I'm an advocator. Take us out with some kinks. Lola.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Mallywell Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes, your most experienced and trusted builder in Mount Pleasant, Clear Vision Windows, Siding, Roofing, and Attic Installation of Midland, Mackinac Properties and Northern Michigan Vacation Rentals, buying, selling, and renting properties in the Straits of Mackinac region since 1998, Tim's Collision Plus in Roscommon, Harrison Power Sports, Central Michigan's fastest growing full-line Arctic Cat dealer, and Dr. Robert Townsend and Denali Healthcare for your alternative healthcare needs.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.